bachelor's degrees awarded to women in STEM increased from 37.9% to 40.2%. That might not seem like a lot, but that accounts for a good chunk of thousands of individuals. So from this data, I was able to look at, okay, what fields are causing this shift? And how can I do that? Well, lucky thing, I had Excel. And Excel has many magical applications, and easily, quote unquote, getting data from iPads and with the help of my mentor, was able to disaggregate this data into 3 base columns, looking at the number of degrees obtained in total from each little major CIP, which represents Certificate of Instructional Program, just representing overall majors. Looked at the total number of degrees or individuals added from each degree, the total number of women and men added to each degree. And again, with the help of Excel, pivot tables, functions, you name it, was able to create a final bachelor's table where we saw that fields such as agricultural sciences and psychology, due to the shift, resulted in a higher percentage of women gaining degrees in STEM fields, which is really cool. I really enjoyed this analysis. So aside from all the data jargon, why does this all matter? Well, the diversification of the field of physics, STEM, and science represent continuous efforts, and there are different avenues of aid for this, whether through in-person mentorship or research. And this type of data really allows for individuals to gain a better understanding of the state of our society through a sense of awareness. And with this awareness, a greater advocacy for change. So I really hope that the data I was able to work with played a small yet pivotal role in helping to bring this sense of awareness, and I'm excited to see where this internship goes for the near future. And just some quick thanks to Christina O'Donnell, my mentor. She helped me vastly throughout this internship and provided great expertise, in addition to Catherine and Michael for the past mentor roles. They provided a lot of great critiques and allowed me to gain more analytical viewpoints. And obviously Brad, Michaela, and Kayla, thank you all so much for providing this internship opportunity, and everyone at APS. It was such a memorable experience. And last but not least, roll tide, and any questions?
Why was the definition of STEM coming from Immigration Customs Enforcement and DHS?
Right, that's a good question, and that's something that had been done for a while with the EPS statistics. From what I gained from my mentor, it had to do with different types of individuals getting visas and whatnot, and better understanding how the United States classifies individuals in STEM. I didn't admittedly focus my research more on why that happened, more on the effects, but that's a good question. Yeah.
All right, great question. So what did you learn by working with in a membership society?
I really learned about the vast amount of work that this membership society does with APS. Coming in, I admittedly did not know very much about APS and the different types of work they do. But even by gaining this little, not little, but sort of small overview of APS, I gained so much information and learned a lot about the variety of work that they do, not only involving statistics, but mentorship roles and helping individuals to gain the most amount of opportunities for their educational experience. So it's been very formative, and I can definitely see myself in the role like this. Maybe for the near future, time will tell, playing it by ear, but it's been a really nice experience. Yeah.
Great talk, thank you.
Next, we have our APS career intern, Jaden.
Okay, yeah, thank you. My name is Jaden Seacott. I'm actually on my home turf right now. I go to UW. I'm going to be a this year. And I worked at APS Careers this summer with my mentor, Bree Hart. We're going to talk about the NFC, which is the National Mentor. So the NFC was created in 2015. Its goal has been to expand the demographics of undergraduate business degree holders, specifically by supporting and bolstering historically marginalized communities, in this case, Black, Latinx, and Indigenous populations. However, of the almost 600 participants in the program, only a little over 200 are actually matched up with mentors and mentees currently. So really there needs to be a massive overhaul of the program. And my job was to match up with specific needs. So I began by drafting a survey that went out to unmatched mentors and mentees. We got 48 responses, 40 mentors and 8 mentees. And the purpose was just to kind of like gauge what issues there are with the program. Issues with the program and what needs fixing, what needs abolishment, just kind of in general what needs to be done. So briefly, you'll see here of the mentor participants in the 40, you can see we have 31 respondees who are working in academia, which is great. We have a high academic participation rate. However, it does signal to APS that mentor recruitment needs to focus more on industry and government sectors going forward. Now you see here we gave 11 options for criteria we considered as a match algorithm. We asked participants to rank their top 5. I want to call your attention to, this is the mentee responses, by the way. Research interests, very important to mentees. You see career guidance, career mentees want mentors to provide guidance on their career trajectory. And kind of in tandem with that, you see the composite sector of industry and academia, which is just our kind of coalescence of employment sector. You also see that location is important. You'll see the in-person category as well as the outside of geographic region category. This mirrors pretty similarly with the mentor responses. Again, they prioritize career guidance a little bit more. Many of these mentors do want to speak on their experiences. But similar focuses on employment sector with academia and industry, location, and then similar research interests as well. So again, just kind of recap all of that. These 4 main pillars that were highlighted in the survey are career guidance, employment sector, research interests, and location. And these are the 4 core criteria that I began to build my new match algorithm around, as these kind of facilitate a more comprehensive mental program for all participants. And we're kind of alongside that, we recently had an external evaluation of the MSc by WestEd, which is a nonpartisan nonprofit agency working on education and equity problems. They completed their appraisal just a little over a month ago now. So I actually was working at APS when we got that data back in their report. They had a couple of recommendations, which I'll run through very briefly. Of the 9 total recommendations they had for MSc and APS in general, second on the list was the match algorithm, so clearly this is high priority to be worked on. But they also talked about some search filter work, particularly in areas of research interest, career aspirations. Eventually, notice that this is the same as the sector, as highlighted in the survey I drafted, and then demographics, including gender, racial, / ethnic. Also happening this summer, it's a big summer for the MSc, we are transitioning from our current online platform, Salesforce, to Ginspire. So Ginspire is a new platform specifically designed for mentoring programs. With it comes a lot of new functionality, including search filters, improved browsing, a more friendly user UI, and it allows for mentors to actually reach out to mentees first if they want, whereas before it was dependent on a mentee finding a mentor and providing that first communication. So I kind of worked on a lot of different stuff at the MSc, obviously primarily the match algorithm, but I did do a little bit of stuff behind the scenes on the Ginspire transition as well as some other stuff. So on the right, I won't go through it, but that's a workflow that I drafted for manual match, if need be. So basically, if the automatic triggers that we're putting in the system this summer and the new platform are not working, the students are still falling through the cracks. This is a way for staff to manually intervene, make sure that those students get the support that they want to find mentor. I also provided experience as a student perspective on the marketing UI teams, basically designing the interface of the new platform, which came along with drafting tips for students on how to navigate the platform, working on some of the language within the automatic triggers in the system, and then also Ginspire offers a feature to reports. Basically, you can track like in real time the user dynamics within the program, so you can see like who's searching, who's sent match invitations, who's kind of stuck in limbo. So I integrated this report feature into the workflow so we can actively track how many people are actually participating in that. So the old algorithm currently in Salesforce is just location-based. It's primarily based on how close you are, which can be helpful. Obviously, the in-person versus outside geographic region, that's key to like figuring out the dynamic of the mentorship. However, the new algorithm clearly has to involve a lot more criteria, which has been highlighted in the survey, the evaluation, and just the overall match field of the only 200 or 600. So this is the new algorithm that I have devised. It's got 7 pieces of criteria. focusing mainly on those big four that I talked about, employment sector, research interests, career guidance, and location. However, major is also in there, because that really does create a set of shared experiences between mentor and mentee, and it also facilitates more academic support as opposed to career guidance. You'll notice that some of these have fuzzy next to them. Fuzzy is a feature of Inspire. Basically, it means that you can link certain criteria to match up, even if it's not a one-to-one match. So, as opposed to an astrophysics and astrophysics only matching, you can match it so astronomy and astrophysics can still match within the system. So it just allows for a little bit more freedom and flexibility in the match protocol. And you'll see that major and research interests are designated as such because maybe you're in high polymer, your mentor has polymer experience. It's like, okay, you can probably make something work there. So we don't want to discount this connection by engaging in commercial matches that way. Just to kind of close it off, with the MC has a lot of great potential. It's an incredible program by APS, and it's had some really great impact on historically marginalized communities. However, all these changes need to be made to revamp the program, and I'm confident that the match protocol will do so, along with all the other Inspire changes. I want to thank SPS and APS and all fellow interns. All the SPS leadership who really helped this summer be incredible. I want to thank GW for my education and for helping this summer. Yeah, any questions?
Just curious, when you started out the project, you said email out to the mentors and the mentees. It seemed like, I don't know how many did you mail to?
So we emailed all the unmatched participants. So the 200 that were in there were as of September 22. We don't have other numbers for who's unmatched currently.
You got 8 responses.
48. Well, 8 mentee responses. The issue with these email surveys is the agency behind the APS. We need to incentivize the card. So there's some past data that I've used to kind of facilitate some of these survey questions. We had higher responses, but they weren't particularly pertinent to what I was doing here. And I asked why we had such a high engagement with surveys. So yeah, we offered a $25 gift card. We did it around. So students were much more confident this way. They had some incentive. So.
That's what I was kind of wondering. Why such a low response?
There's also the element of like, if they're inactive in the program, they're probably not checking their email and probably not doing so much. Unfortunate, but yeah, what can we do?
I was curious how you determined the weights on your new algorithms this year, because I noticed that like gender and ethnicity were given like very low priority. And obviously like it's not an experience that like anyone wants to have in a mentee position, that they're in an unwelcoming environment. But like as a woman in STEM, there definitely are environments that can be like kind of uncomfortable to be in. And I was just curious, like, how the team overall determined those priorities when you were recommending the job.
Yeah, absolutely. So first, I just want to say, she mentioned earlier, the actual percentage values are not arbitrarily chosen. That's designated by the Inspire system based off the rankings. It also rankings based off, like, the number percentage is based off of relative. As far as that particular topic, when we sent out the survey, it was designated as important by participants, obviously largely virtual participants, but it wasn't as key to building mentorship as like career guidance from one sector. Also, the Wested survey also did involve interconnect in the summer. So the Wested survey went really heavily into like the racial and gender demographics of the mentorship populations, and they found that typically without any actual consideration of gender or racial identity, the matching is pretty one to one. Because there's obviously a majority of white mentors in the program currently, just because of the demographic of business in general. However, the next closest matchups for between mentors and mentees are of the same like, racial identity. So, and then we have, I think it's 45%, around 40% female mentor participation. So there's very high like participation in the population. And with the new Inspire functionality, the match algorithm is not really the end all be all for matching. there's a lot of improved searching, so you can search based off gender, based off ethnicity, different like, you can even like add in multiple criteria, say that I want a female physicist working in high quality physics who is of over thinking with that background. If that's what you're good, if that's like the most important thing to do, then you push it, go for that. But you could.
Round of applause for our speaker.
All right, next we have our SPS Public Engagement Intern, Jenna.
Okay, cool. Hi, thank you. My name is Jenna. I am a rising senior at Lafayette College in Eastern Pennsylvania. And this summer, I was the APS Public Engagement Intern working for the closure. And I'll be talking about a little bit of the work I did with APS Physics Quest. So I had 3 main projects this summer. The first were creating a set of guidelines for Physics Quest. The second were creating extension activities for Physics Quest. And I also helped facilitate the Science Trust project for this cohort of interns. Due to time, I'm only going to focus on my work with Physics Quest today. And some of my summer goals included learning more about what a physics outreach and engagement program could look like, working with developing curriculum, and then also, of course, meeting everyone and all the employees at APS and other teachers. So what is APS Physics Quest? These are experiment kits for middle school teachers that try to introduce middle school students to basic physics concepts. They follow next generation science standards, which are typical science standards in most public schools have in different states. And there's a strong focus on induction-based learning, which is learning by example. So the Physics Quest is set up so the kids do the lab first and learn the major concepts at the end. Some of the goals include making physics more accessible, exposing teachers and students to physics concepts, engaging a more diverse and underrepresented students with a strong emphasis on young women, and also to promote engagement in science. So there have been some changes to Physics Quest throughout the years. So they started as these Spectre comics, but over time it was found that the comics don't really engage students in the same ways that they had been before. So they are now moving away from the Spectre comics and now focusing more on counter narratives or stories of physicists who we might not hear of in textbooks. So moving away from the Albert Einsteins of the physics world. And now the next step in what I spent a lot of my summer doing is incorporating Step Up, which I'll go into more detail about in a couple seconds. But this will help have a stronger focus on pedagogy, increase the reach of Physics Quest, and also, of course, help make physics more accessible and intuitive. So what is Step Up? Step Up is another kind of curriculum that is formed by a national community of physics teachers that create lessons to inspire young women to pursue physics, but again, this extends to anyone. They have 2 main lessons right now, careers in physics and also women in physics. And they also have their everyday actions guide, which is what I worked most closely with this summer. And in this guide, they have strategies for reducing marginalization in the classroom, including ways of grouping students, talking to students, assessing students, you name it, they have a recommendation for it. So in order to kind of make sure that Step Up is going to be correctly incorporated into Physics Quest, so they're kind of like forming some kind of an umbrella connection, I worked on creating a set of guidelines, which will be used by future Physics Quest reviewers, so the people who look at the curriculum, and then, of course, the developers who make it. And this is to ensure that the project goals I mentioned earlier, and then also the different Step-Up components I talked about in that Everyday Actions Guide are included. So we split these guidelines into 3 main sections, one for the developers, one for the reviewers, and then one for these extension activities, which I will go through in a couple minutes. To do so, I met with 3 different teachers from around the country who are involved in this Step-Up program to ask them about various things they would want to look for in these lessons. I created a first draft with my mentor based on their feedback, and we gave them the draft. They gave us more feedback, and now we also needed a rubric for the current 2023 activities, and they're currently working on checking whether or not the new activities follow these guidelines we created. So some highlights for the guidelines for the developers, we recommend that recommendations are included for how to facilitate these activities using some of those Step-Up methods. That's the kind of the image you see there on the right. For extensions, we recommend that specific links and resources are included, which is something the teachers asked for, and then also those 2 already created lessons from Step Up are in there. And then for the Physics Quest team or the reviewers, we recommend that they check that those examples of character narratives are included and that the activity promotes student development of science identity. So now talking about these extension activities I made. So these are the after experiment activities used to further engage students. So the kids have the lab that set up the Physics Quest, and now what comes next? So we split these up into three main categories. The first is a real world connection. The second is some kind of suggestion for drawing or presenting the content in a new way. And then one sort of engineering or design challenge. And these have, we broke these up into these three categories, and I didn't decide this was already done for me. Because of the base research has shown they connect underrepresented students. So they do so by encouraging agency and ownership, including communal elements and elements that help them solve critical problems in their communities, and then of course incorporating the ways that growth and achievement science that's coming from. So to do so, I started by reading over all of the teacher's manuals. So the chart on the right is a progress tracker I created. We started back in 2009, and each had about 4 different labs, so I have worked on a lot of these. I read over those teacher's manuals to figure out what the lab was about. And then I started thinking, and there was definitely a lot of challenges that I wasn't expecting with this. I wanted to create a lot of unique activities. So if something came to mind that I had done, or like looking on Google for a lot of inspiration to kind of like see what was out there, because each activity I wanted to make different and completely unique from one another, and it gets pretty difficult when you have so many to do. And then once I found something I thought of, I would modify it to make sure it met the Physics Quest requirements. Often that meant changing materials to make sure they were accessible to teachers, or finding some sort of instructions or YouTube video that you could explain. I'm going to quickly go through a couple of examples. First is a real-world connection example from the 2009 kit about lasers and wavelength. This is about asked students to research Donna Strickland, so this is an example of one of those counter narratives. An example of the engineering or design challenge comes from the 2018 Straw Rockets activity about potential and kinetic energy. This is something I actually did in 8th grade. It's really easy to like make a marble roller coaster using foam insulation pipe or pool noodles. That's pretty inexpensive. And then teachers can alter like the different requirements. And then lastly, for presenting content in a new way, this is from the unreleased 2023 Physics Quest about waves, so you have a sneak peek. This I found a literal link that was like stand in a line and have students like act out a wave in front of their baseball field. And then also creating like a wave flip book from graph paper. And just to end, I want to say another special thank you to my mentor Nicole for all of her help this summer, to Allie, Zach, and Claudia for their help with the science stress project I worked on, and then of course everyone at SPS and APS. Yeah.
Time for 2 quick questions, and I love the photo, by the way. First question.
Yeah.
What was the highlight of your internship?
I think besides, of course, it was like making all this curriculum, and this is stuff we're going to be using for like the future of this class, so I would bring that was pretty cool. But in general, me, myself, and also Devin and Jade talked to so many different APS employees that do so many different things and have so many different like tasks to get there. So it was really helpful as someone who's graduating in the year to see like what there is to do.
I have a question.
Yes.
Good.
Thanks.
I'm not familiar with these quests. Are those resources available for?
Yes, so if you just like go online and search APS Physics Quest, it should pop up. The updated ones are not up yet. I don't know really when, hopefully within the next year. I think their goal is to have these updated ones up, but it's like taking a lot of back-end website. But the current ones from like those comics and then the 2021 through 2022 ones are pretty recent. Those are all up for free. They used to like send actual kits to teachers, but they put all the resources and stuff up for free, and that's why like the materials we try and use are like easily accessible. So if they use it but don't get their like kit, they can still do it themselves.
Round of applause for our speaker.
Next, we have our FYI Science Policy News intern, Julia.
Right, hello everybody, my name is Julia Nicola, and I'm really looking forward to talking with you all today about the science policy decisions that shape our world and my time this summer working as the FYI Science Policy Communications Intern. So I first just wanted to give you guys a brief overview of what I'll be talking about today. First, I'm just going to talk a little bit about me, and then I will get into what FYI is, what they do, and how I helped contribute over the summer. And then finally, I just wanted to touch briefly on why science policy should be an issue of importance for all of us. Alright, so like I said, my name is Julia Nicola. I'm going to be a rising senior at Radford University next year. I'm studying theoretical and experimental physics with minors in gender studies and philosophy. Prior to this internship, I previously completed a couple of years of research on airborne and waterborne microplastics. And I also try to stay pretty active on my local campus, so I'll be serving as the vice president of my SPS chapter next year. Alright, so now to get into what FYI actually is. If you're interested in our website at all, you can scan that QR code or just go to aip.org/FYI. But FYI is really the intersection of policy with the physical sciences. We've been publishing since 1989, and as you can see from this lovely snippet of our beautiful new website, we offer a pretty broad range of ways to stay involved in science policy. So the overall goal is to help experts and the layperson alike deepen their understanding of the decisions and the people that go into shaping science policy in the United States. So what exactly does FYI do? We publish newsletters. These are going to go out to our subscribers every week, and these contain information about what people might have missed, what's going to be coming up, any events that are happening, as well as job opportunities. And then on our website, we also have a budget tracker and a bill tracker, which I find really helpful. And then we also publish longer form articles that we call bulletins. So these are going to be a more in-depth analysis of specific policy issues that go a little bit more in-depth in this newsletter as well. So now I wanted to get into how I helped contribute over the summer. Like I said, we send out weekly newsletters, and I helped write these from the beginning of the summer on a really broad range of topics, ranging from telescope launches to the community of science advisory panels. And I found that this was really helpful for me to understand the really broad-reaching ways that science policy can impact all of us. Next, to get into the bulletins. Like I said, these are going to be longer, more in-depth analyses of specific areas and legislations. Typically, the FYI team is going to publish 2 or 3 of these a week. And I was actually lucky enough this summer to work on my very own. So if you're interested in reading that, you can scan QR code. Just to give you a brief overview, it was about wildfire research legislation that was in the works. So what I did is I attended the House Science Committee on this topic, and then I read the legislation about it and wrote an article. And now for the budget tracker. Like I said, this is an incredibly useful tool. I'm not sure if you guys have ever read a budget bill from Congress. It can be about 200 pages long, and they have a lot of information in them. So what we do is we take all of that information and we parse it down to the numbers that are specifically of interest to science policy. And then that data gets entered into a Excel spreadsheet and finally uploaded into software called Tableau. I'm going to go a little bit more in depth on that later. That's basically just data visualization software. So this is really helpful because you can then compare budget numbers between fiscal year, and you can also compare what the government agencies requested versus what was given to them. And like I said, you don't have to do the work of reading a budget. And now for the bill tracker. So the bill tracker is going to be an up-to-date index of all of the legislation that's currently going through Congress. We have a search page on our website, so you're able to filter down those results to what you're interested in. And then on each individual bill page, you're going to find a summary of the most important parts of it, as well as a link to the actual bill text. And then finally, you will find information about the sponsors and co-sponsors, as well as any actions that have been taken on that legislation. How I helped with this over the summer is I wrote several bill summaries, especially for legislation pertaining to weather and climate. And now, like I said, I wanted to go a little bit more in depth on Tableau. So this is just data visualization software, and you can create a lot of really nice graphs and charts. But I actually just used this to create some geographical maps. So for my first project, I actually created a geographical map of all of the NSF awards and grants that were given. And this is going to include information for what the project actually is, the organization that it's with, and then finally the primary investigator on those projects. And then for my second project, I actually created a map of all of the national labs and federally funded research and development centers by congressional district. So this is going to give you information about the lab itself, as well as the district it's in and who's representing it. And then this actually links out to the external FYI website, so you can get more information about those representatives. And finally, I just wanted to touch pretty briefly on why science policy is important for all of us. So like I mentioned before, science policy impacts so many different areas of our life, from defense to technological privacy, climate, weather prediction. There's so many areas that it impacts. So even as just a normal everyday person, I think that it's really important to stay up to date, but especially as a scientist. As scientists, a lot of the time, it's our job to translate really complex information into something that the general public can understand. So part of our job should also be, instead of just staying informed on science policy, we have the power to inform science policy. And now I just wanted to say a really special thank you to the entire FYI team leader Mitch, and my mentor Andrea, and then SPS, all of the leadership, as well as all of the other interns. We have my contact info, QR code to know them. Thank you guys.
Could you say a little bit about the subscriber base? How many subscribers do you have? What percentage of it is relevant? And is that good? Are you happy with it, or do you think it should be a lot more?
I think that it should always be a lot more. I can't speak necessarily to specifics. I've never looked at the demographics of that, but a couple thousand, right?
10,000.
10,000, okay. And ranging from experts in the field, government workers, normal everyday people, scientists, pretty much anyone who can. Thank you.
Well, first of all, we, us, our. You've really, you're FYI, you're in it. So I just think that, your effectiveness as an intern is because now you're identifying as being like integral to the team. And from what I understand, you have been all summer. What did you find to be most surprising about your foray into science policy?
Yeah, thank you for that question. I think that going in, I expected a lot of science policy to be about climate and weather, because that's a lot of the science policy that I think the general public hears about. But like I touched on a little bit, science policy impacts everything. It's not just about climate and weather and climate change and all of that good stuff. It really impacts every area of our life. So I think that was probably my most important part, for sure.
Looks like they're speaking. Great job.
Hello everybody. It is truly an honor to be with you for a second time, as I was a physics today intern last year. I'm Lisa. I go to Bowdoin College in South Maine. I'm majoring in physics and government and media studies. The concentration is in international relations. I'm the Math or NIST intern, and my main project with NIST was to come up with a framework using publicly available data based on inferences and observations on Manufacturing USA Institute's membership characteristics. I know not all of you are familiar with Manufacturing USA, so I'll give you a little bit of information about that first. So Manufacturing USA is a network of research institutes that all focus on advancing strategic technologies through public and private partnerships among academia, industry, and federal government. Currently, we have 17 of them, all working and developing cutting-edge technologies for and of course, educating a skilled American workforce for advanced manufacturing, as well as ensuring the resiliency of our supply chains. Here on the left-hand side, you're going to see a schematic on our member organizations, from public and private to academia. When I say public, I mean the federal, state, and local governments. The private sphere includes the small and medium manufacturers, as well as large industry members. Academia is anything ranging from research universities and community colleges to community law schools. These institutes are being funded by 3 different federal agencies, the Departments of Commerce, and Energy, and Defense. And the institutes utilize what we call a cost-share system. So what that means is that a portion of their funding comes from these federal agencies, but a majority of their funding is being covered by their member organizations. industry and academia. Here I want to include an entire map with all of our institutes, the 17 of them, with all their geographical locations and also their strategic technology areas ranging from smart manufacturing to 3D printing and robotics and AI. But I want to draw your attention to Nimble right here in Delaware, working in biomanufacturing and biopharmaceuticals. That is the only institute that we have operating on the Department of Commerce, and therefore it's being funded by National Institute of Standards and Technology. Now, just jumping onto my project for the summer, it consisted of collecting institute membership information using publicly available data to make some inferences on membership characteristics. I use pivot tables in these. When I say membership characteristics, I mean membership longevity, university and industry partnerships and participations in these institutes, and of course, multi-institute memberships. I'm going to tell you about two of these today. Going on to multi-institute memberships, what I mean when I say multi-institute membership is any member organization that we have that are that are members of more than one institute. So here you'll see two pivot tables with both of our member organizations with memberships, 4 or more memberships to our institutes. In the middle are all the institutes that they are a member of, and at the bottom table you can see that between years 2019 and 2022, we've seen an increase in our academia members with 4 or more memberships, whereas the industry number has stayed the same. I also wanted to include a list of all the member organizations with 6 or more industry memberships. They all mostly constitute of the academia members, as you can see here, whereas our industry members are mostly defense contractors like Boeing, Raytheon Technologies, and Lockheed Martin. Now, these findings show us that universities definitely find it beneficial to become and stay as members of manufacturing institutes, but I guess the institutes would benefit greatly from encouraging more industry members to be members of more institutes. I also looked into participation trends between 2019 and 2022. I color-coded all of our member organizations with more than 3 memberships in red, green, and yellow, as you can see, depending on whether they're increased, decreased, or kept constant their membership numbers. From the table, you can see that the universities increase their institute membership at a higher rate than the industry and also the member stakeholders, which means, again, that universities do find it beneficial to become members of these institutes, but the institutes would benefit greatly from encouraging more and more industry members. Now, why is this project important? It is important for accountability purposes, since some of these funding is coming from the taxpayers' money. So this entire project would be built into a performance review system for the 3 federal agencies, the Departments of Commerce, Energy, and Defense, to find the optimal workings for these institutes and see why or how they're attracting or losing members. And it is also beneficial for institutes to see whether or not they're losing or attracting more members, what kind of members they're attracting, and what can we do to enlarge their member organizations. Now, moving on to some of the other things that I got to do over the summer. When drafting legislation, if they want to do right, the members of Congress need to send out a request for technical drafting assistances to federal stakeholders, just to take advantage of their understanding of certain issues that the members themselves might not have a lot of knowledge on. I had the chance to work in a couple of these with the policy division at NIST, and then I started getting more and more through the end of my internship. Someone must have realized that I do bills for fun. So on the left-hand side, you're going to see the National Defense Authorization Act, and the right-hand side is a House bill authorizing the Secretary of Commerce to establish a manufacturing community support program. I also had the privilege of attending the 2023 NIBL annual meeting. NIBL is one of our institutes, as I mentioned earlier. It was in DC this year. I had the chance to see firsthand the public and private partnerships between academia and industry, such as the big pharma like Genentech and Pfizer, and many of the community colleges and the academia members. And last week, I was in Atlanta last week, attending the High Impact Technology Exchange Conference, where I had the chance to attend many panels with the educational development leaders from different industries and the community colleges. Manufacturing USA had an exhibition table there where we had the chance to bring in the education outreach leaders from all the institutes to kind of, introduce our institutes and what we can do for the community colleges and the industry. That was definitely my note to end my internship on. Last week, I want to thank John Navigators for being the visionary behind the creation of this internship position. I want to thank Raj, Camila, and Camila for making this type program possible. I want to thank Lisa and Robert, especially Robert, because he will be passed on that I promised to the program staff applying to be here today. So, and to thank the entire administrative team for giving me the opportunity to support me for this. Thank you.
Where did you get all your data from?
So it was in the customers, it was both from the institute's websites or from their annual reports. That's why we only had the data for 2019 and 2022. Because sometimes for use 2020 and 2021, the data was missing. So we just wanted to further get our data to get the analysis.
So you said you like reading bills?
Yeah.
Well, perhaps you know exposure about this. What part of that do you find like most intriguing?
Oh yeah, it was really exciting to be a part of like the entire process and through the entire email chain, but like the bill itself, and then you have to go through it, and then give you suggestions and recommendations. And my favorite was actually the National Defense Authorization Act that you saw on one of my slides. It's this huge monstrous of the bill, but we had to go through the step presentation and study and this is
I'll start. One more exciting talk about.
All right, well, let's see out. And our AI came out with a public policy intern from Capitol Hill.
Okay. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the last presentation for the day. My name is Ruthie, and I am the area coordinator for the policy intern this summer. I was at the House of Representatives Committee on Science, Space, and Technology. Now, I did what the committee did, which meant that I went from quantum to subsurface science to fusion. But one big undercurrent of committee activity this summer was artificial intelligence, because artificial intelligence has really become a subject of general conversation due to the creation and proliferation of large language models. And so I probably attended about 7 events on AI this summer. And so I wanted to walk you guys through basically the ecosystem behind how AI regulation would be completed. So who's involved with any regulation on AI? We've got the executive, President Biden and his team, including people at the Office of Science and Technology Policy, are working on AI initiatives. Government agencies like NIST are also working on projects involving AI. Experts in businesses like scientists and companies are also working on formulating their own feedback while they're implementing these technologies. Courts are not currently reviewing past legislation because there is no current legislation on AI, but there's a lot of stuff that is coming up in current courts that definitely inform us about the current issues. And then bringing it home to both chambers of Congress, we have the Senate and the House. Each different legislative body has its own team that's working on these issues. I'm going to walk you through each of these. So first, we'll turn to the executive. President Biden just last week released a paper about how he received voluntary commitments from 7 different companies that are involved with AI. These include companies like Google, OpenAI, and Anthropic, any company that's doing a lot of work with large models and implementing AI. And he's really focused on ensuring consumer safety, making sure that everyone's data is safe, and making sure that
these models have elements of transparency when they're created, because while companies want to retain their proprietary information, people need to know what's going on behind some of these algorithms. But Biden can't actually do very much without legislation from Congress. As I said before, these are just voluntary commitments from these companies, and there's a lot more that needs to be done. Moving on to government agencies, NIST, at the direction of the House Science Committee, which has jurisdiction over standards, created the AI Risk Management Framework and the Trustworthy and Responsible AI Resource Center earlier this year. Basically, once these standards are created, the Office of Management and Budget requires that these standards be implemented across the government in different agencies. So even if Congress doesn't actually pass legislation on the creation of AI, if the Science Committee directs NIST to create these standards, that has really big ripple effects. Other agencies are working on implementing AI in their specific sectors. If there's medical technology, the FDA is dealing with that, and so on. Now, not everyone is involved with the government. So we have a bunch of other people. Right now, everyone has to figure out how to implement AI in their own lives. I'm sure a bunch of people have been debating whether or not to include ChatGPT in their homework endeavors. But companies also have to figure out how to implement AI before regulations exist. They have feedback for legislators, but really want regulation, because once regulation exists, companies have a safe space within which they can experiment and create new technologies, but companies don't want to create anything if it could later be determined that the thing they created was illegal. So we really want to incentivize new technologies and the creation of new technologies through regulation. This also includes companies who are dealing with power grids and want to use AI to streamline things. This also includes scientists who are using AI to, increase their search algorithms on projects and things like that. Moving on to the judiciary, I mentioned that there isn't any current legislation, but there are a lot of current AI-related court cases. A lot of them have to do with intellectual property rights. If you've been following the actors and writers strikes, a lot of that has to do with AI and clauses that are trying to be incorporated by producers. But AI is also being used on the basis of current data that is definitely, the data is discriminatory against certain groups to protect people from getting organ donations or mortgage applications. And cases like that are likely to move into the courts as time goes on, and those impacts begin to be felt by people more as these technologies become increasingly used to make decisions about things like this. And this is, again, before there's any actual legislation that has been passed. Now, bringing it a little bit closer to what I've been doing this summer, in the Senate, the main people who are dealing with AI is Senator Chuck Schumer, the majority leader. He's talking to a bunch of stakeholders. He's talked a lot about plans for AI regulation. He wants to make something on a shorter timescale, but he hasn't actually released anything concrete. Now, the staff on the Science Committee is definitely working with him, because any bill that gets passed is going to have to go through both the House and the Senate. But the Senate Judiciary Committee has also been holding a series of hearings on AI oversight. They've been doing a lot with intellectual property as the Judiciary Committee, human rights, and things with rogue AI and autonomous AI. Pro tip, if any politician is ever telling you that you should focus on the sci-fi sounding dystopian future where you're being turned into a paperclip, it's probably because there are real people who are being hurt by things now, and they want to distract you from it. So I think that, this is obviously a personal opinion, but it's definitely more important to focus on the real issues impacting AI implementation now. Moving on to the House, we're also split between two different areas, which is the House Judiciary Committee and the
Committee on Science, Space, and Technology. So what is the Science, Space, and Technology Committee working on? Within our committee jurisdiction is those NIST standards that I addressed before, but the House Science Committee is also working to guide new research on AI. When I interned at NIST a couple of years ago, I used machine learning in my own research, and that's definitely an area where this is important. But it's also, there's a lot of things about AI that aren't understood yet, and more research through NIST can definitely be useful to make sure that that understanding is made available. We held a hearing this session that I actually helped facilitate on AI, which was really great. But I just wanted to say that, you know, these technologies are affecting everyone. If you don't think they're affecting you, you're probably wrong. But especially as scientists, research isn't just constrained to the things that you might think of as physics. And our skills and talents are needed in this area too. I wanted to say thank you to all of the staff of the House Science Committee, to Brad, Kayla, and Michaela, and John Mather for making this possible.
Can you talk a bit more about the work that goes into preparing for a specific hearing, and also kind of the function of hearings within the legislative process and the elements of theater that tend to sometimes enter hearings?
Okay, well, I'll do a little bit of a shorter answer on this one, but I've definitely written a lot about the elements of theater in some of my blogs, because that was one of my big takeaways from my first hearing. A lot of the process goes into finding witnesses for the hearings. We'll try and get different witnesses from different stakeholder agencies and different groups that might have different perspectives. So I think for the AI hearing, we had a witness from the Harvard Responsible AI Center. We had a witness from Hugging Face, which is an open source AI platform, and there were a bunch of different people. I think there was a lawyer. So that's trying to get those different perspectives is a big thing for the committee. As an intern, a lot of what I did was I wrote proposed questions for members to ask the witnesses on our legislative priorities. So on AI, that related a lot to workforce, safety, and a couple of other topics. We make binders. There's a lot of paper waste. Let's see. And then the actual facilitation of the hearing, we're trying to make sure that everything goes as smoothly as possible. So keeping lists of like who's asking questions when, making sure everyone's informed. I, for previous hearings, have helped write opening statements for members. And then because a lot of the hearing is the public-facing part of the process, but a lot of thought also goes into questions for the record, which can be submitted by members and often by our team to any of the witnesses. And oftentimes it's really just a good way of soliciting feedback. Now, we also take any proposed piece of legislation and send that out and solicit feedback from that too. But it's more of an indication that this is something the committee is working on and sort of showcasing the direction.
Great question. Since that was probably 3 questions, good for all of the questions. And I think we have a minute or two of wrap up. So give a round of applause for it.
All I have to say is, wow. You all did absolutely amazing. And I don't know how this is going to work with the camera, but I think you all deserve a standing ovation. So we can have everyone just stand up and just, you too. No, but you all accomplished so much within a short amount of time. Outside of your presentations, you all have gained so many skills. How many of you have put on a workshop because of this internship? put on a workshop, yes. And how many of you are published because of this internship? Deep crowd. How many of you have traveled to a conference because of this? You did. Yes. How many of you met someone new, like a network that you will take, far in your career? Everyone's here. Yes. Again, we are so proud of you, and you took advantage of every single opportunity that was in front of you. And like Brad said earlier, you will always be our family, and you will always be each other's family. The biggest resource that you can have going forward is each other. So I want you to remember that, and we're proud of you, but I want you to also be proud of yourselves as well. So one thing that I do want to end on, well, I was supposed to close out, but Brad, so I don't want to get emotional, but I've done this thing with Brad for 5 years now. This is his last internship, and Brad doesn't have kids, but you are like his children now, and just like every internship before. So I want to give a round of applause because I couldn't have done this alone without as guests, but also Brad. So I want you all to give Brad a round of applause.
You all are family for me, right? Like, I've gotten to know each and every single one of you. I've interviewed lots of you. We've gone on adventures and done things that we can't and shouldn't talk about, but all kinds of fun stuff. But the important thing is that you really are the future of physics and astronomy and the physical sciences. You mean an awful lot to me. And all the people in this room, you helped make all of this happen. And because of your efforts and the things that you've done, you've changed the world. Every year we change the world and it's a little bit better. And I just wanted to say thank you for letting me be a part of it. So, thank you.
All right, so thank you all for making the internship what it is. What I said at the beginning at your orientation, you make this internship, and that is exactly what you did. I also want to thank the mentors, friends of SPS, George Washington, Alexandria for help hosting us, all the donors and anyone else who has helped make this possible. The staff of SPS, again, not done this alone. So thank you again, and just one last round of applause for everyone. All right, so I won't put you long. We have some good food out there, so everyone help themselves. We have plenty of lunch, so do not be shy. Get as much as you want and bring it in and network with one another and just, yeah, be your design. Well, not
We'll spend some time,